Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to the Q Lounge Live. Hi, I'm your host, Shady Groove, and this is the In the Matrix channel. It is just after 9 p.m. on the East Coast, 6 p.m. on the West Coast. It is Friday night, everybody. Thanks for coming around. Thanks for joining me. What a week. What a storm. What a time to be alive. I hope you're paying attention out there. Everyone, this is an unbelievable chain of events that you are watching happen. This is amazing, guys. Thank you so much for coming around tonight. We have got a pretty awesome group of mods out there. If you do not know them, they are here to bring the sauce. They are out there tonight. They're going to be dropping the links to you. If you have a question, don't hesitate to put it up there and ask them, and they can bring it to you. This is a one-of-a-kind time to be alive, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you what, I have never seen the deep state in a panic like this. None of us have ever seen this in the history of our country. We've never seen people waking up like this in the history of our country. So for all of you guys out there, if you're joining us and you're new to Q, welcome, and this is going to be a heck of a ride for you. And for all the people that have been with us for this whole time, well, you know what kind of ride this has been. This has been just incredible. So tonight, we are in the midst of an impeachment, aren't we? They're trying to impeach your president, guys. They voted today in the House the House Judiciary Committee 23-17 to impeach your president. How do you feel about that? Do you feel it's fair? They have drawn up 2 articles of impeachment, one for abuse of power and one for obstruction of Congress. Wow, seems pretty light in the loafers considering what Mr. Horowitz had to say in the Senate committee the other day, which was astounding. If you didn't see it, if you were watching any of the other channels, you didn't see it because CNN, MSNBC, and those channels, they didn't play it. They skipped it. They didn't want you to see what Lindsey Graham was outlining that Horowitz was going to talk about. And they went on down the road with their narrative, didn't they? They just kept on going with the narrative that there was no political bias, like you care about political bias. Not at all understanding the real story, not at all understanding what really matters, not at all understanding what it is that it means to have due process in this country. Due process. That's what you're witnessing. The removal of due process from an elected official as president of the United States, guys. Unprecedented time to be alive. So within watching all of this and watching the media pretty much take advantage of people not knowing anything, people not understanding their government, people not understanding what it is that we're talking about, people not understanding how the law works, people not understanding what it means to have a court case and to be fair. The Republicans in the committee did not even get an opportunity to call any witnesses, none. They were promised a day. They drew up in their own rules that they could call witnesses, but they got no chance to call any witnesses. Due process? Can you win a case if you go in front of a judge with what? No ability to call anybody about your side? No ability to say, no, this is not how it happened? No ability to cross-examine? Is that not why we're in this predicament to begin with? Think of the FISA court, the Fisk court. Created in the 70s to have secret meetings, to have no evidence supplied by the person being investigated. This was amplified by the Patriot Act and then weaponized by these same people that we're talking about today going back a long time. Robert Mueller, James Comey, Rod Rosenstein, and quite a few others. No different. And so they jump on this high horse of what they're calling an abuse of power. So we're all headed down the holiday season road here. You're going to be talking to your families. You're going to be interacting with people, and people are going to be asking questions. And they're going to be telling you, oh, well, he's abusing his power. And I've been thinking a lot about this. And I want to say this to you guys. That's the reason we have a president. Abuse of power. And I don't mean that inversely, but I mean that subjectively. Is there an official in any other country that rules over the country without being stymied by the political class? What makes your country better? What makes your country different? 3 co-equal branches of government, that's what. With the president, the office of the president of the United States being one of them, the executive office. So my theory on the reason that we have a president, and I think that the forefathers were very insightful in their planning of the Declaration and the Constitution, has to do with the deep state, ladies and gentlemen. There was a deep state long before there was an America. And if you remember, some of you, maybe that are a little bit older, they used to teach us this. They used to teach us about how the church, quote unquote, or religion would subvert science, destroy science, attack science, hurt people, maim people, imprison people, scholared people, people that had new ideas, people that talked out against what their ideas were. What were we leaving when we left Europe to form a new nation? What were your ancestors thinking when they decided to stand up and fight in what was called the American Revolution? What were they fighting for? They were fighting for a republic. And the reason that we made 3 co-equal branches of government was so that the president could fire people. Quite literally. So that the president could fire people. So that the executive branch could come into office every 4 years or 8 years and completely eliminate the swamp buildup. That's the beautiful part. Now, they're saying the president abused his power and that the foreign governments or the foreign interest in bribing, and this is the reason that they put in the reason that they put impeachment in. No, that's not. That's not at all. The fact of the matter is, they knew then, take yourself back, they knew then of a central bank. They were trying to free people from the confines and the bond of the central banking system that had plagued them their whole lives, including their early life here in America. Now, there was a lot of people in in America at that time that were just fine. Remember, only 3% of the colonists rose up to fight the Revolutionary War. 3%. How many people did we just find from the little poll that they did on Jesse Waters about QAnon whenever they said that we're reaching a 10% concentration level among Americans? So in theory, we're already outside that 3% fighting right now on the digital battlefield, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, all over the digital world, and you're being suppressed, attacked, shunned, called names, much like the people that were fighting this revolution a couple hundred years ago. So the president being talked about as abusing his power, think logical. They are afraid. They are scared on an unimaginable level to you. It's not just them. They're scared for their families. They're scared for all the people that they said that they would protect. They're scared for all of the infrastructure that they have built over the last 100 years, roughly, since the Titanic sank and the Federal Reserve came to power. That's what this is all about. This is about getting rid of the Federal Reserve. You knew for your education system why the Constitution was so important. You knew because we were actually taught civics. The schools today are not teaching these young people civics. They're not showing them what it means to have due process. And they're telling them that it's just a gray area and it doesn't really matter. But what you're watching is the most powerful man on planet Earth who wields the power at the stroke of a pen of the United States military be consistently attacked by people who were enemies of his before he became president. How far does this plan go back with Q? And so we're going to be connecting a lot of the stuff tonight about abuse of power. Where did it come from? What does it mean? And what are we going to do about it? Because, right, the future is, what are we doing about it? Not what's happened, but how can we fix it? We've never witnessed an abuse of power as this in the history of America, 243 years. The people must stand and be heard. Do you love your republic? If so, you must speak up for our POTUS. And I mean, you need to call your representatives. If they don't answer, leave a message. Call them multiple times. This is important, especially if you live in a district of one of those 31 Democrats who have to vote next week to impeach a duly elected president after they were elected to semi-support him. We're going to read Q 2440, where Q gives us the picture of the flag. And he says, "Be proud, Patriots. Today, like in 2016, you are in one united voice. rising up to defend this great nation. Today, like in 2016, you are in one united voice, protecting the freedoms in which so many have died to provide. Today, like in 2016, you are in one united voice, making America great again. We stand together. We stand united. We stand for our flag. We stand for good. We stand for what is right. We stand for compassion. We stand for freedom. We stand for peace. We stand for liberty. We stand for justice. We stand for equality. We stand for prosperity for all. We stand for religious freedom. We stand for human rights. We stand for life. We stand for each other. We stand for friendship. We stand for love. We stand for fill in the blank. We stand for the United States of America. Are you proud to be an American? Today, America is reunited. And on a big level, we do live in a world where today America is united. I know that we have the alternate thinking Twitter sphere and Facebook arena and Google and YouTube, where everything that is being controlled by the higher ups are being censored and suppressed. But it doesn't take away from the idea of how many people show up at those Trump rallies. The number of people that show up at those Trump rallies is incomprehensible. Never seen anything like that from a political candidate ever in the history of our country with those types of numbers. So, like I said earlier, the abuse of power that the president's being charged with is the exact power that we gave that office to make us different than all other systems, different than parliamentary systems, different than monarchy systems, different than any other system, because the executive office is a co-equal branch. And now you have another branch attacking the executive on known false information. These people are knowingly telling lies. Not accidental. These same people that a year ago were standing up and saying, tear down statues of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, and calling everything that has to do with our forefathers racist. If you were watching the 23 of them on that committee, all of them invoked one or the other of our forefathers. Do you believe them? Do you believe that the things that they were saying and talking about, of quoting Benjamin Franklin, of quoting Thomas Jefferson, of quoting George, do you think that they are actually saying those things as a desperate need to protect the republic? Or is it a desperate need to protect their, quote, democracy? We are a constitutional republic. We use democratic principles. But we are a constitutional republic. And it's nauseating to watch the mainstream news, and I don't really care what platform it is, whether it's PBS or Fox News, they all refer to us as a democracy, inching away further closer to the younger generation who did not ever learn that they live in a republic. Therefore, they think the most votes should win. The main thing that makes your system amazing is the Electoral College. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. When I was younger, I didn't think that it was necessary any longer. Now, being older and seeing how things play out in the political atmosphere, wow, what a concept. I would suggest that maybe the Electoral College is the only reason that we still have a republic. Because if you add up the people in LA, there's only, 10 states that have more people than the city of LA or Orange County or whatever, LA County. That is exactly how they've controlled us. That was exactly the plan, going back to the initiation, before the initiation of the central bank. This whole thing, huge plan, 150 plus years of how to insert a banking system, remove all the wealth, put it somewhere else, and then destroy you by taking your firearms, by taking your freedom, by taking your liberty, by taking your choice, by taking your wealth. They've stolen your choice. And every voice that's out there matters. Every person that's inside the country or is an American, your voice counts more than you know. And I think this was a large reason why we had to have Q, because our voice had to count again, not on Twitter, with each other. We're communicating with each other. We're making friendships. We're making bonds. We're making a future together. We're creating a parallel reality, like we were talking about earlier yesterday on the Matrix Groove Hour. The parallel realities that are occurring right now, and the soon-to-be intersect that's currently approaching, where the truth will outweigh all the propaganda. The propaganda cannot exist when confronted with the truth. And what you're seeing is this violent uprising of people beating up people. Whenever it comes to that, recognize politics exists to prevent us killing each other. That's the only reason it's there. Politics exists so we don't kill each other. And it's a good thing. Not everybody likes to talk politics, but it's a way to argue. It's a way to debate. It's a way to have a say. It's a way to make a change. If you want to run, run. If you think things are wrong, change them. But all in all, this Q post says so much, because this is what we stand for. And this is always what we stood for. And the silent majority never stopped standing for this, but the media decided they wanted a narrative of socialism to overlay history. They got to get us back to that. They got to get you to give it up. They got to get you to say, oh, it's not worth it. Oh, my privacy doesn't matter when I go to the airport. Oh, it doesn't matter that they're spying on me with every device. It's fine. That complacency, whether or not you're doing anything wrong, is irrelevant. The idea that you're okay with people collecting information on you that you don't know about for purpose of selling to foreign countries, it's too much. So with all of this stuff going on, and everything your president is doing, and everything that Q has done to wake us up, and all of the anons, brilliant anons on the Chan boards, on Twitter, on Facebook, thank you. Thank you to every single one of you for standing up for freedom, because it means more than you'll ever know. You're never going to understand it. Most people will never understand what this means for grandchildren and their children's children and the next 100 years of America. Do they get to rip it apart? Do they get to take and say that, oh, well, this is a living, breathing document? Or are we going to get behind the idea of, no, this is the Constitution, and yes, a free society is dangerous, but I would rather live in a dangerous society and be free than a safe society and be a slave? I think that we can all get on that page. I think that we can all get behind that message. And I think Q knew that, and I think your president knew that. And at the rallies that he's done, you see it in the people outside. You see it in the people in the seats. You see it when they laugh at him. He connects with you because he's a human being. And he is the best possible candidate that we could have ever elected for firing people. Matter of fact, he spent 15 years on NBC teaching people how to fire people that didn't live up to the job. That's what we want. That's what anons want. That's what we mean whenever we say justice. So with this impeachment, don't fret, please. I think that this was the exact plan. And we're going to get a lot more red pills to a lot more people because now they're waking up. If any center-minded independent watched this last week that has any understanding of the Constitution or the law, their mouths were hanging open. I don't even think that the Dems knew how bad they were exposing themselves. I mean, I heard story after story after story about how you grew up, what happened in your life, how you became this, how this person is commendable, how this person's a decorated official. All of this stuff is nonsense. Means nothing. Means nothing to you, means nothing to your republic. Those are the people that were elected to serve you, not prance around in front of you and act like they're on some sort of higher pedestal. Just not true. We the people, we the people, we the people. Nothing else matters. So we're going to be moving into the next phase of this, everyone. A shift is Habbened is the name of the show tonight, because that is what has occurred. We are now on offense. We're now going to be able to present evidence. We're now going to be able to start talking about what is the truth about the, quote, Russian hack. What is the truth about Seth Rich? What is the truth about Mr. Assange? What is the truth about the deep state that doesn't exist according to them? I want to run through this thread, if the mods could drop this thread to you guys, but this is very important because this is CrowdStrike. And I went through and I gave all the links in this tweet or in this thread and all the connections that Q gave us to CrowdStrike and what it means and who are these players. This was December 22nd, 2017. One day after the executive order was issued. All of these names, all of these organizations are in cahoots. One of 22, DNC breach, dossier, DNC, SR, WL, Hussein, DNI director, clown director, class 1 through 13, Google, CrowdStrike, DNC, Seth Rich, 187, MS 13, 187, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, foreign and domestic assets, insurance, three-sided pyramid, Hussein, HRC, LL, JC, AMPS, support, Schumer, Pelosi, Schiff, Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Class 5, Class 6, British Intel, HRC, can't pay. Horowitz confirmed that they paid for the dossier. DNC pay, Class 1 through 4 pay, Steel, Podesta, Holder, Relay, Special Russia, Spec Russia, Class 1 through 9. U.S. Senator No Name, U.S. Senator Class 1, U.S. Senator Class 2, JC, LL, Hussein, FISA 2, Presidential Daily Brief, U.S. Senator No Name, News Shop, BuzzFeed, Public Narrative, Stage Set, Future Prevent Removal Operation, U.S. Intel illegal spies on presidential candidate, president-elect, Republicans in Congress, Republican senators, and friendly news, etc. Q. I'm going to post, just let you look at that for a second. Remember, guys, you can go back and pause the video and take screenshots of any of these memes, any of the stuff that we show on the Matrix Groove Hour or here. It's a great way to grab the memes if you don't have them. This is listing all the people in that post. This isn't just about the Hussein administration. It goes way deeper than that. CrowdStrike, provider of the first true software as a service-based next-generation platform, announced that the company has completed a $100 million series financing round led by Google, Capital, and Rackspace. So I'll put this together for you so that you can go through here. You can look at some of these memes that came out about these posts, about CrowdStrike, and understand what some of the acronyms mean and how some of these people are connected with your media and your government. And it's not just that either. It's also your universities and the studies that they do and the science that they proclaim. Fraudulent on an unimaginable level. So I wanted to share this with you because CrowdStrike is very important, because that has to do with all of this spying and how they set up stuff in other countries. And then this meme again. 6 companies control all of your media, almost all of it. 6. 30 years ago, it was 50. Now it's 6. Do you feel like you're getting proper information? Do you feel like your friends and family who are lost are getting proper information? There's a reason that they're triggered, and that there's a reason that they're going off, because they have decided that they can't debate on facts and they must attack. And that's their plan. They think they're going to divide us. Q and the president and all of you beautiful people think something quite different. We're going after them. We're going after all of them. No deals if you played the game. Let's listen to, this will play. Let's listen to just a minute or two here of Bill Barr.
Mr. Attorney General, why do you say that the FBI opened the investigation of the Trump campaign on the thinnest of suspicions?
Well, I'm glad to get into the issue of predication, but let me just start out by saying that I think you have to put this in context. I think the heart of the IG's report really focused on how the investigation was conducted once it got going, and that is especially the very serious abuses of FISA that occurred, much of which has been, in my view, not accurately reported by the press over the last day. But in one area, I do disagree with the IG, and that was whether there was sufficient predication to open a full-blown counterintelligence investigation, specifically using the techniques that they did to collect intelligence about the Trump campaign.
Well, as a policy matter, why not open an investigation on a thin pretext? I guess on the one hand, you could say it's a presidential campaign. It's very sensitive. You need better evidence. On the other hand, you could say it's a presidential campaign. We have to be very careful. There could be a threat to our political process.
Well, I think probably from a civil liberties standpoint, the greatest danger to our free system is that the incumbent government use the apparatus of the state, principally the law enforcement agencies and the intelligence agencies, both to spy on political opponents, but also to use them in a way that could affect the outcome of the election. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time in history that this has been done to a presidential campaign, the use of these counterintelligence techniques against a presidential campaign. And we have to remember that in today's world, presidential campaigns are frequently in contact with foreign persons. And indeed, in most campaigns, there are signs of illegal foreign money coming in. And we don't automatically assume that the campaigns are nefarious and traitors and acting in league with foreign powers. There has to be some basis before we use these very potent powers in our core First Amendment activity. And here, I felt this was very flimsy. Basically, I think the department has a rule of reason, which is at the end of the day, is what you're relying on sufficiently powerful to justify the techniques you're using? And the question there is, how strong is the evidence? How sensitive is the activity you're looking at? And what are the alternatives? And I think when you step back here and say, what was this all based on? It's not sufficient. Remember, there was and never has been any evidence of collusion, and yet this campaign and the president's administration has been dominated by this investigation into what turns out to be completely baseless.
Well, of course, it doesn't turn out that.
Oh, yeah, he's going to go argue. Let's argue with the attorney general who actually has the information. I want to play this one, too.
So in May 2016, apparently a 28-year-old campaign volunteer says in a social setting...
This is George Papadopoulos.
This is George Papadopoulos. And this was described by the foreign official who heard him who couldn't remember exactly what was said, but it was characterized as a suggestion of a suggestion. He suggested that there had been a suggestion from the Russians that they had some adverse information to Hillary, which they might dump in the campaign. Well, what was going on in May? You may recall that we were in the thick of the investigation of Hillary Clinton's secret server, and the media was full of stories, and the blogosphere was full of stories, and political circles in Washington were full of stories and speculation that the Russians had, in 2014, 2 years before, hacked into her secret server and were therefore in a position to drop this stuff during the election. In fact, the day before this comment was made in a bar, Fox News was reporting that their sources told them there was a debate going on in the Russian government as to whether or not to drop Hillary Clinton's emails between the intelligence agency and the foreign ministry. But that related to Hillary's server. So the FBI, what the FBI did is later, after the DNC hack and the dumping through Wikipedia in July. WikiLeaks. In July, they get this information that this somewhat vague statement was made in a bar. And they jumped right into a full-scale investigation before they even went and talked to the foreign officials about exactly what was said. They opened an investigation of the campaign, and they used very intrusive techniques. They didn't do, I think, what would normally be done under those circumstances, which is to go to the campaign.
Yeah. So you're seeing something that you've never seen before. You're watching the mainstream news completely lie to you and cover all of this up. We were under the impression that the media were there to root out corruption, to find corruption and tell us about it, no matter what it costs. But now you have 6 companies that control pretty much everything in the media, and their cohorts control everything else in our society through this United States of America embodied politic trust. So they're all working together perfectly with Hollywood and with billionaires and philanthropists of the like, no matter which side of the aisle they're on. And so you're watching a man explain to you how the powers that we gave our government when we created the Fifth Court, and then again with the Patriot Act, this is the reason so many of us conspiracy people were screaming at the top of our lungs in 2003, this is not right, or 2001 when they passed the Patriot Act. This is not right. You cannot do this. You cannot treat us as cattle in the airport. You cannot search us just because we're walking onto an airplane. But everybody just went right along with it. And now they're scanning every single thing you do, whether it be email or text messages or whatever else it is, under the guise of what? What if they catch you talking to someone from Russia? Do they really need a case to prosecute you? They don't need a case to prosecute your president. They're prosecuting him without a case. There's no crime. There's no evidence. There's no witnesses. There's no due process. None of it of which you would be granted if you were being attacked by the government. And this goes back to another problem that we have, because our Constitution was set up in a way to where the government actually couldn't come after you. And then everything changed. You had to have a person whom could prove you had harmed them to even get to a court. The idea that the state could confiscate, that the government could confiscate your assets was absurd, obtuse, completely unthinkable. The idea of having a czar was completely unthinkable. Look at all the words that they used in the past and how they started telling you what they were doing. They were literally telling you what they were doing. And now they're coming right out and talking about it. What is the story of us? What is our story as America? Were we perfect when we created the Constitution and became a nation? Or is the idea of America an idea that we're on track to get better because we are wealthy? The idea that you being allowed and granted the rights to your labor and the productivity of such would become an entrepreneur. You would innovate. You would copyright things. You would trademark stuff. You would patent things. You would innovate because you were motivated, that you thought that in the end, what it was that you created would be your say as to what to do about it. And that is being taken away from you. In the court systems, with these crooked prosecutors that aren't prosecuting murders in sanctuary cities, they're not turning people over that have already committed crimes to ICE. They're letting them right back out on the streets. Then maybe they catch them whenever they hurt, maim, or mess up someone else. Maybe they don't. We played a 10-minute video earlier on the Matrix Groove Hour about despotism. And that is what they are attempting to instill on us. Make you desperate. Despotism. The state rules. Everything goes through the state. I don't think we're going to stand for it. As a nation, it won't work if we don't stand against it. And also, without QAnon and great patriots, we wouldn't be here having this discussion now. Even if the president got elected, because it would be almost impossible for us to navigate what's really going on. But now we have an insight into the way they communicate with each other in their tweets. We have an insight into the way they're communicating with each other in chat logs. We have insight into who the players are and how they own all the businesses and how all the businesses came up under the same trust and how they coordinate together with all the philanthropists, and everybody's just in this big club. And over time, they buy up the little guys, and the next thing you know, the food is poison. The next thing you know, everything that you're eating is poison to prevent you from being able. They're not trying to kill you. They're just trying to prevent you from being able to think. And in the long run, they don't want you to be feisty when you're older. This was just day before yesterday. YouTube is banning malicious insults against public officials who are members of a protected class. What does that mean? Despotism? So you're saying you're going to protect who from who? YouTube? Miss Wojcicki? We've always removed videos that explicitly threaten someone, reveal confidential personal information, or encourage people to harass someone else. But moving forward, our policies will go a step further and not only prohibit explicit threats, but also veiled or implied threats. This includes content simulating violence towards an individual or language suggesting physical violence may occur. No individual should be subject to harassment that suggests violence. These people would consider justice for crimes committed by deep state politicians violence. I don't consider that violence. It's not violent at all. Once you go through the system and are convicted, it is not violence. It is actually civility. Think mirror. As we discuss all of this, everything in your society that was engineered to function in a certain way, prima facie, as they speak about it, is actually doing the opposite. Illegal immigration and naturalization services were always in charge of getting more illegal people here. The DEA was always in charge of getting more drugs here. The CIA has always been in charge of the rat lines. The rat lines were created by them. There is nothing outside of the deep state in the powers of control and government. Until the one man got elected in 2016 that they couldn't buy. And he knew they were going to come after him like this. He knew they were going to attack his family like this. And they did. So now you're having another layer. Beyond threatening someone, there is also demeaning language that goes too far. Okay. Really? Well, there we go with the hate speech. How far is it from a hate speech or from hate speech to a thought crime? Are they opposing or are they the same? Look how we've been conditioned for this. Movies, everything has conditioned us for this asleepness that is now being broken by the Great Awakening, permeating our reality in a very fast-moving way. So whenever we talk about a lot of this stuff that goes back to the 100-year mark or whatever, we talk about the Trading with the Enemy Act. And if you've never paid attention or read the Trading with the Enemy Act, you should, because that is pretty much the way that they infiltrated the system and backed up the banking structure and then proclaimed bank holidays and then stole all your money and then pretended like, oh, your money just fell off the earth in thin air. It went somewhere. There was no speculators. There was no bankers that just piling up the gold and moving it to another bank and then loaning people money 10 times, 20 times the amount of gold they actually had, and then creating paper currency, taking gold away from you. Gold and silver aren't just currency. Anyone out there know about monoatomic gold? Anyone out there used colloidal silver? Have you used colloidal gold? Read about these things. Understand that value of money isn't in its value. It's in its healing properties. And there's a real reason that they don't want you touching it. Because believe it or not, touching gold and silver has healing effects on the human body. So, Trading with the Enemy Act, the Federal Reserve, the crash, the depression and the crash, the stock market, was all engineered. This didn't just happen. It was a way it was a plan they devised to steal from you, and it kicked it off with sinking the Titanic and getting rid of the three main people, Strauss, Astor, and Guggenheim, who stood in stark resistance to a Federal Reserve. Q points us back to those things. Q pointed us back to those things extremely early in the Q-posts. A lot of us that knew what was going on knew at that time that what Q was saying to us was something magnificent, something extraordinary, something that we couldn't explain to people that were not in a conspiracy world or in the mindset of understanding that we've been lied to. Now, 3,666 drops later, we're unified. And when Q drops, we all go to his drops, we dissect the drops, we read what he's saying, and we look at the media or the material that he's pointing us to, and we read it. We read the reports. We read it. We read the transcripts. We read it. And then we show you. Now, the media, they don't do any of that. When have you seen the media read a Q drop? Why can't they just go read the Q drop and say, no, this isn't true because CrowdStrike isn't this. And no, this isn't true because Loretta Lynch wasn't here at this time. And no, this isn't true because whatever your reason or information. There's a reason they don't do that. They can't dispute it. And if they bring it up and try to spin it It's so simple and written in the Socratic method that it will inevitably wake people up whenever you read question after question after question. The obvious answers pop into your head. And the unusual answers are things you don't know, we go looking for. The Trading with the Enemy Act, the enemy is you. Pure and simple. And that's why it was written, to steal your wealth. And that's what they did with it. It's part of what we have to stop using because, believe it or not, the deep state still uses this authority. They use this authority for all kinds of stuff. Same way they're using their authority for the FISA court. How many people do you think have been treated fairly that have had a case brought in front of a FISA court that 98.8% of all cases brought before them get approved? I mean, if you're 50-50, that means 50% of everything the court's ever done is BS. So we're talking about the world that's engineered. We're talking about non-coincidences. Q wants us to understand that there are no coincidences because when you look back on history, people used to tell us all the time that if something happens and government benefits, you can bet it's intentional. And I agree with that. You can bet it's intentional. Who was Albert Pike? How many of you know who Albert Pike was? Morals and Dogma. I want to read a couple of things from this so that you can just sort of see. This was written in the mid-late 1800s. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the adjutor agents of the Illuminati between the British and the Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we need it for the final social cataclysm. After the Second World War, communism was made strong enough to begin taking over weaker governments. In 1945, at the Potsdam Conference between Truman and Churchill and Stalin, a large portion of Europe was simply handed over to Russia. And on the other side of the world, the aftermath of the war was Japan helped to sweep the tide of communism into China. Communism imported from Japan to China. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the adjutor of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the modern Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provide a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Lost my spot there. Delusion with the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will form that moment when be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the truth light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Well, now that's interesting, isn't it? Do you see a world developed anything like that, what, 3 paragraphs? Do you see an engineered world? Do you see a mess to untangle that goes back to the mid-1800s? Look at this. Look at what they are doing to us intentionally. Look at how they used the Second World War to move a huge group of people into the Middle East to agitate them. They also had the Iranian oil and the Saudi Arabian oil in their back pocket so that they could compete with the monolith that was America. And they could sell to both sides. Do people war? What's worth warring for on a foreign land? Are you gaining ground? Are you going to war to occupy land? Are you going to war to occupy treasure? If the answer to those questions are no, then you shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be there. The Constitution says we're not allowed to be there. And they knew this then. They knew this then. This was all a trick to get America into World War I. They knew if they could get us into World War I, it was off to the races. And they have nothing but time. One step at a time. Incrementalism, that's what they call it. Incrementalism. And they've got us here to today. And they've pushed America to the point where we're ready to stand up. We're ready to fight back. We're ready to bring the truth of this to the light. Bring the truth of the trust, the Pesor trust, to the light. Bring the truth of the NRO to the light. Bring the truth of what is now and for the future regarded as corruption to the forefront. When Q says we are the news now, that means it's your job to show the corruption. That's what the journalist is supposed to do. The journalist is supposed to be on the side of right, not the side of us. The side of what's good, not the side of what's better for me. The side of objectivity, not the side of what I think. If you're not operating in that capacity, you're not a journalist. And there's not a lot we can do about them. You know, there's some stuff we can do about them.
I'm gonna tell you fascists, you might be surprised. The people in this country, we're getting organized in Washington. And I'm gonna tell you workers, before you cash in your checks, they say America first, but they mean America next in Washington. All you fascists gotta die. All you fascists gotta die. All you fascists gotta die. Someday you gotta lay down and die. I'm going into battle, gonna take up a Union gun. I ain't gonna let down. down until every battle's won in Washington, in Washington. My brothers and my sisters marching at my side. We're marching through the fields where 1,000,000 Nazis died in Washington, in Washington. Whoa, all of you fascists gonna die. All you fascists gonna die. All you fascists gonna die. Someday you gotta lay down and die. All you fascists gonna die. All you fascists gonna die. Every fascist gonna die. Someday you gotta lay down and die. I know we're all praying on that day.
Yes, we are. 5 Anons. The world that we want to create is not the world that we have right now. The world that we want to create is a better world, a fairer world, a more tolerant world. They're not allowing that intentionally. They're not allowing you to develop that intentionally. There's a plan behind that. We're exposing that plan. Mr. Rothschild discovered the basic principle of power, influence, and control over people as applied to economics. That principle is when you assume the appearance of power, people soon give it to you. Mr. Rothschild discovered the currency or deposit loan accounts, the required appearance of power. It could be used to induce people, inductance, with people corresponding to a magnetic field into surrendering their real wealth in exchange for a promise of greater wealth. Instead of real compensation. They would put up real collateral in exchange for a loan of promissory notes. Mr. Rothschild found that he could issue more notes than he had backing for. Scam is older than humanity, just about. We've had a con run on us. And we've been called conspiracy theories, and we've been called wrong, and we've been called all of these names, me for a lot of years. Way before I got on Twitter. This is a narrative. This is a way to subvert our country. This is a conversation that is our duty to country. Our duty to country to speak up for. What would they say? What would your forefathers say to you if they could sit down in front of you right now? What would they say? Would they be concerned? Or would they look you right in the eye and say, it is your fault? Remember, these were people of great stature, people who had made a way for themselves in this world. They would say, you messed up. They would say, you forgot to teach the next generation. They would say that you didn't think it was important enough to teach your kids at home what the school wasn't teaching them. They would say you screwed it up because you became uninformed. You decided to trust the untrustworthy, the central bank. The reason the country was founded was to get away from the central bank and to get our money out of their control and to make sure they wrote in the Constitution to never exchange money whether it not be gold and silver coin. All of a sudden, there was the silver certificate, then the dollar. Then it said on there, you can change the dollar for any silver. You can always exchange your dollar for silver. And then it became a note. Good for all debt, public and private. So when you move a note around, what you're doing is you're moving debt around. Not real currency. It's not real money. The debt. And the reason that we're doing shows like this and the reason that we do the Matrix Groove Hour every day is so that we can penetrate this message in a broad manner, whether it be showing old videos, whether it be showing old text, whether it be showing old information, old research, stuff from the past, bringing it to the future, bringing it to the now, showing how it still applies today. Because it all still applies today. Every bit of it, guys. So now we're going to pivot a little bit. We're going to run through some news. I got tons of stuff here, and I'm going to show you some articles and just go a little bit, just a minute or two on each thing as we go through some of the stuff that's going on. Sarah Carter asked, what kind of tools and assets could a State Department official have allegedly used to surveil U.S. journalists in Ukraine? Must have been a matter of national security to order surveillance of U.S. citizen, hopefully duly approved by a U.S. court. Coming from Devin Nunes. So they can use these tools against the most powerful man in the country. And we're sitting on our hands? No, we're not going to sit on our hands. We're going to show the truth. We're going to bring the truth. Whistleblower Google developing an AI for planetary surveillance. Just announcing today that Google will not be running political ads. How did they control the narrative? Google is going to act what? Like, oh, where are you going to put stuff to search? Where are you going to speak up as a candidate? How are you going to get traction if you can't put political ads on this platform? So now YouTube, Google, I think Facebook and Twitter are all claiming that they're going to not support ad. Why? I mean, the president has over 100 million. The Democrats are broke. So the Democrats aren't there to keep them afloat right now, huh? You cannot trust these people. You cannot trust these organizations. We've got to tell people this. This was from November 16th.
Unfortunately, just in the past few years, we have seen these conflicts take on an entirely new character. Immediately after President Trump won election, opponents inaugurated what they called the resistance. And they rallied around an explicit strategy of using every tool and maneuver to sabotage the functioning of the executive branch and his administration. The fact of the matter is that in waging a scorched earth, no-holds-barred war of resistance against this administration, it is the left that is engaged in the systematic shredding of norms and undermining the rule of law.
Yes, it is. These people right here, this spy operation, this White House, this clown organization, this DNI, this DOJ, this FBI, this senator, this company, Fusion GPS, this law firm, Perkins Coie, this media, Washington Free Beacon, all of the individuals involved in all of this is who the Attorney General is referring to. This is the truth. This is the short-term truth, but this is the truth about what happened in 2016. And there are no counterintelligence investigations opened without the signature of the President of the United States on an American citizen. So, for instance, this guy, what was his name? Harris. Shane Harris. Go look him up, the blue checkmark guy. This is the guy that released information saying that General Flynn was having an affair with the lady, I think it was in Ukraine, and wrote this huge, crazy article smearing General Flynn that caused a lot of the FISA stuff to be moved around. Like, oh, well, we got this. Also, these media people telling me over and over and over again that the dossier didn't have anything to do with opening a counterintelligence investigation into President Trump. 2 letters. BS. Complete garbage. It's a republic if you can keep it. It's a republic if you can keep it. Statue of ancient god of child sacrifice put on display in Rome on November 6th. The reconstruction of a pagan idol who demanded child sacrifice was stationed at the entrance of Rome's Colosseum as part of the secular historical exhibition. Presence of the idol raised particular concern among Catholics as it was erected 9 days before the Amazon Synod or in the subsequent scandal over the veneration of the Pachamama idol at the Vatican. Statue of Moloch, worshipped by both the Canaanites and the Phoenicians, is part of the exhibit dedicated to ancient Rome's once great rival, the city of Carthage. Large-scale exhibition titled Carthage, the Immortal Myth runs until March 2020. Are they communicating with you? This is this. This is being investigated by him. And they're not too happy about it. And they're coming out and saying stuff like what you saw Eric Holder say, I think it was yesterday, attacking John Durham. Not a good idea in the public square. Really bad idea. We're getting them. And no, we're getting them. Here's the article about the suspected whistleblower, whose name is now out there, by the way. I think it was some news article posted that today. They actually put his name out there in the press. The lawyers aren't verifying that, but we're pretty sure that this is who it was. And we're pretty sure that Carter Page and Paul Manafort were plants who went to spy, who weren't unfairly treated, but actually set up to do what they were doing. We know that Carter Page is fighting to prevent some of this stuff from even coming out. They're not angels. And I think that this gentleman right here, who I highlight, EC, is a couple of the acronyms that we already have on QMAP, and also is connected with the creation of the dossier. Wonder where that whistleblower went. CEO stepping down this week after 36th most dramatic exits in record-breaking year of CEO departures. What? This? 2 years since the QAnon phenomenon. 11,000 CEO recognitions across the board. More to come. This list is incredible. The mods out there will drop you the link to this if you don't have it. But this goes through and does exactly what Q asks it to do, resignation and on. Keeping up with this is an incredible feat. Thank you, Patriot. We got a lot of mess to clean up, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of mess. This is part of our problem. And we're getting ready to move into this for a few minutes. I'm going a little bit over where I thought I would be by now, but we are going to talk about this. I want you to look at what you're seeing. Companies Disney owns. A map of Walt Disney companies worldwide. Here's red is film, blue is television, almost orange is music and radio, gaming, finance, theater, consumer goods, property and parks, publishing, and digital miscellaneous. OMG. How can we see? Look at this. All representing companies. Anything familiar? I would love if you Anons and Patriots who come to this show, come to our show, hear our voices, would do Matrix and I a real solid. Don't buy Disney products for other people's or your own children, please. Stop it. I don't care. I don't care whether it's movies. I don't care whether it's games. Buy them something else. This cannot continue. And this is the hub of what it is that represents the current cult occupying all seats of government pretty much on planet Earth. Complete media control. They do not hide it. This is an amazing graphic. Look at all these companies. Subsidiaries. Publishing. Magazines. Movies. Control of the narrative. This is why we fight. This is what we know that is not fair. This is what we know has to be stopped. And this permeates our society. And it's perpetuated by, oh, your imagination. Oh, that's your imagination. Do you realize you're hypnotizing your children with spells and rituals whenever they're at the perfect age to be susceptible to spells and rituals, only to make them grow up having unusual, unattainable fantasies about the world that they live in, i.e. princes and a prince on a white horse, or the princess in the high castle, or whatever you want to call it. It's all garbage. It's all there to prevent you from being an entrepreneur, prevent you from tackling your life, prevent you from paying attention to your life, prevent you from doing something productive. Entertainment, they say. So as long as you're out there watching somebody throw a football around, or sitting there watching Netflix, you're doing exactly what you're told. The moment you put down that alcohol, the moment that you change your life, the moment that you do something different, the moment that you take a stand, the moment that you make yourself different, that's when we win. That's how we win. There's no other way to win. We have to stop it. The CIA story of the Finders abduction operation. This is no different than this. This is this. It's the same as your Twitter. It's the same as your Facebook. It's the same as Amazon. All there designed for particular avenues of control over the narrative. February 7th, 1987, the Washington Post ran an interesting story that did not at first seem to have any particularly national significance. And the article concerned a case of possible kidnapping and child abuse, and material discovered in the Washington area, and they say points to the 1960s-style commune called the Finders, described in a court document a cult that conducted brainwashing and used children in rituals, and the D.C. police who searched the Northwest Washington warehouse linked to the group removed large plastic bags filled with color sides, photographs, and photographic contact sheets. Some showed naked children involved in what appeared to be cult rituals, bloodletting, ceremonies of animals, and one photograph of a child in chains. Customs officials said their links to the D.C. area led authorities into a far-reaching investigation that includes the finders, a group of, quote, 40 people that court documents allege led by a man named Marion Petre and the various homes. This is an enormous story. This, you'll see, is posted July 2005. This trove of documents was just recently released by the FBI. 324 pages of the information about this, the finders. Here it is. All the documents from this investigation. This was a lead-in to what we're talking about, to this cult, to this network, way back in 1987. And there's tons and tons of great info out there about the finders. The mods will drop you some of these links that I'm showing you here. We're not gonna dive into it. I just want to show you how far back this goes, guys. And now you're seeing a bit of D-class on stuff that's 30 years old plus. Eyes on Q did a great thread on this. Look at the way we're having, this was a Natural News article here. I think I have that right here. Yeah, this is a Natural News article. November 13, 2019. FBI Records Vault recently released a treasure trove of declassified documents about the 80s sex cult known as the Finders. The Finders are this. What would be a better place to find a kid? Do you have any idea the underground system under Disney in all of their facilities? I'm telling you, you walk into that place with your child, and if they've seen on a camera as you walk in the gate, and that's something or someone that they want, you're not leaving with them. $400,000 children go missing in America every year. 10,000 people are shot. What was their answer to this? Oh, we're going to start putting names on milk cartons. Was that the deep state thumbing their nose at you? Was that the clowns thumbing their nose at you? Oh, we're going to put the kids on milk cartons. You know what they know? They know they're already underground. You're not going to find them. And if they do surface, like one of the guys did, what was his name? In the Bush administration. The name just escaped me. He had a different name. He was a press guy, but he was started with a G. Grosh, maybe. Missing kid showed up as, it looked like the exact same person. Different name. Probably has no memory of it. If you play the game, you get to come back to the surface. They're laughing at you when you buy Disney stuff. They're laughing at you when you take a Disney cruise. They're laughing at you. They know you can't see them. They didn't know we were coming. Anons are making a difference. And the way you're making a difference by being a digital soldier is to move this information around. This is not bogus information. This is suppressed information. Big difference, much like your YouTube. Suppressed information. Under the cover of darkness and deception, the finders were abducting women, children, and other victims as part of a large, well-organized scheme. It has been revealed further, the U.S. intelligence apparatus was covering for it all, falling, more accurately, refusing to go after the perpetrators in order to bring them to justice. This was the thread. First Amendment for all. That was it. He goes through and gives you some highlights of what they were uncovering. And some of the same people, Mr. Mueller, were in charge of stuff like this. Robert Mueller is the person who signed the order allowing the bin Laden family to leave on 9/11, allowing the only plane to take off and fly out of America. A couple of them, I think. Mr. Mueller signed that authorization. Here's another good article from recent. FBI declassifies files on the Finders and McMartin preschool child trafficking cases. There was a few daycare center cases this week. There's a bunch of sex trafficking cases or indictments that are getting unsealed. You're seeing these indictments that we've been talking about, the 130,000 now indictments, you're seeing them be unsealed in these sex trafficking cases per the executive order 1221, 2017. They're releasing this information because it is no longer needed for their investigation. I think that's going to be a big part of our future, is them releasing the information so that, or because of, their investigations are finalized. Otherwise, you didn't see any leaks from Horowitz's report. You're not seeing any leaks coming out of John Durham or Mr. Huber. We're going to listen to just a minute of this. This was a video the Finders explained that Tiffany Fitzhenry did a couple of weeks back. It was really good, but we're going to play just a minute or two of this and move on here.
Police chief of Omaha was involved. Warren Buffett was involved.
Buffett was involved?
Absolutely, Buffett was involved.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you guys got to read the Franklin, and I'm rereading it because I read it years ago, and I'm just... And
What's the book people need to read on the Franklin scandal?
It's the Franklin cover-up, and it's written by John DeCamp. There's another book called The Franklin Scandal. It's not a bad book. It was written by another author, but you need to read the Franklin
cover-up by John DeCamp.
It's in a PDF. It'll cost you nothing.
Go online after you finish watching this and go download and read the Franklin.
You won't be able to put it down.
Cover.
But John,
Franklin Scandal.
He was a veteran. He was in Vietnam. He worked with Colby in the Phoenix program in Vietnam. And when these children came forward, he was their champion. And they got an investigation. The private investigator finally, and they had all these. And I just wanted to make this point too, because this is what we're talking about. And this is what you're going to have to talk to your children about at some point, and your relatives and everybody else. These children, which are the same children that were at Presidio and in the Finders case, same type of children, were satanically, ritually abused and murdered by this network. And these kids came forward, some as young as 8, through the DCF system, and they all told the same story.
Same.
And the people that were charged to protect them, the police, Department of Children and Families,
covered it up.
Just covered it up. And they had this one individual who came forward, and they put this child through a lie detector 4 times. They passed. The polygraph expert was telling the people involved, this kid is telling the truth. They were beyond reproach. And what ended up happening was the FBI came in and went after the 3 main witnesses. Paul Bonacci was one, Alicia Owens, and Troy Boner. And they got these kids charged with perjury. And the 2, Bonacci and Troy Boner, they just gave up the story, so they didn't prosecute them. Alicia Owens said, you know what, screw you guys. I'm not taking this back. She did, I think, 9 years in prison.
Oh, my God.
For perjury. So that's how they broke out. And the other thing, and they had the goods. The private investigator, his name was Gary Cariadori, that worked for the government, the Senate committee in Nebraska that was investigating this, had gone to Chicago. He flew a private plane, and with his son to see the Cubs game. And God, I never would have brought my son, but they went up there, and he was picking up evidence from, I believe it turned out to be Rusty Nelson, who was a photographer that the network used to do child pornography. And he had left and was sick of the whole thing and sick of what he had been doing.
That you're seeing is this. Okay? There's no difference between your media companies, your social media, and your intelligence agencies, including the FBI. Sorry. They're corrupt. Now, maybe we're working on making them uncorrupt, but in the past, they have worked tirelessly to prevent anyone from finding out any of this information, working with people like Prince Andrew, telling BBC he was being honorable by staying with pedophile Jeffrey Epstein despite it being wrong, as he says he let the site down. Today, on the Matrix Screwdriver, Fox News did a story and they called him a disgraced financier. Where did he go bankrupt? Where's his disgraced finances? Show me a news story. The guy seemed pretty well untouchable. But no, he's a disgraced financier. Even though we can't prove where he made a penny. America is a corporation. You're a slave property of a corporation called the United States of America and body politic. Your president is attempting to change that, and the only way he can change that is by absolving the Federal Reserve. We have got traders and infiltrators and multi-traders and everywhere. This was a nice graphic showing an almost 1 minute delta a couple weeks back. Under 1 minute delta. Talking about Schiff. And we've got a lot of stuff on him. A lot of stuff on Mr. Schiff. Got a lot of stuff on a lot of them. Company co-founded by Nancy Pelosi's son charged with security frauds. Was that Ukraine? Miss Pelosi, you became one of the most influential, most powerful women in the world. Are you the head of a cartel? We have pictures with you and El Chapo, Beto O'Rourke, all your minions with Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders, all just big old club. This Chase Bowden just got elected. San Francisco, I think it was San Francisco where he was elected. This is the, let me see, make sure I got this right. This is the son of one of the Weather Underground creators. Is now DA in San Francisco? Why do you have Chinese writing on the front of your page, sir? Anons, no. Not going away. Mr. Schiff. Here, the White House put out Adam Schiff in the kill box. Well, look at this. How many times do we have Adam Schiff in the AS in the kill box or QMAP? Adam Schiff is a traitor to his country. Adam Schiff has seen evidence of collusion and or the post-Russia illegal activities he started in most past many times across all Democratic armed media networks. Then why is there a need to open new investigations? How is Adam Schiff making open statements regarding Mueller not investigating? Did you ask yourself how all of these people knew that the dossier wasn't used for applying for a FISA in a secret court? How did they know that? No one from the court ever came saying that they didn't do that. We've got you, Mr. Little Schiff. And we know what you've been up to, buddy. And we know why you're squirming. And we know why you didn't show up for that hearing the other day. They put a lawyer up there. Ken Starr came and made his case in front of us. Look, I didn't think we should be impeaching a president over an affair with an intern. Was my opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion. That's what I thought then. I kind of still think that now. It seems like there was plenty of other stuff, but who was protecting him? Oh, we have a picture of Bill Clinton not a picture, excuse me, a painting of Bill Clinton hanging at Jeffrey Epstein's house with him in a blue dress, sitting in a chair, pointing at the camera or the painter. Do you think they caught him by surprise with that blue dress? Do you think that that was a way to keep the other side quiet so that they could keep on running their game? Keep on running their con? Oh, look, she's got a stain on a blue dress. What if that was the story the whole time? What if they started that whole thing with that story? What if that was where that was going? You realize bad stories that come out about them are known to them. It's a wrestling match. They know you're going to do the whatever. It's prepared for. It's planned. Look at the way Blasey Ford went up there. Look at the way these people went up there the other day. They're prepared. You've got attorneys asking attorneys questions. Why? Which one of them? Who in the hell elected any of those people? A council? And now we've got the full vote coming next week. So mark my word, this is going to be an interesting week coming up next week. If you live in a district with one of those 31 members, I would please call one. Call them a few times. Tell them POTUS sent you to say we want our country back. Tell them you support our president and to stop attacking him. Tell them that if they quit, the trajectory of history may be kind to them. Adam Schiff is a traitor. Jerry Nadler is a traitor. Nancy Pelosi is a traitor. Chuck Schumer is a traitor. And it's not violence for me to call them what they are. It's the truth. And for however much you want, that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to bring the truth. No matter how much it hurts, no matter how long the Band-Aid has been sticking on it. We can see the Band-Aid has been put on for over 100 years. Getting people to understand that the world today, look how I just was able to bring up the world of 100 years ago and connect it right to today. Anne Wojcicki, sister of Susan, who's over YouTube, is Chief Executive Officer of 23andMe. Okay, so let's make that two things. Don't buy anything from Disney for any children, and don't send anyone you love and care about a 23andMe package. And if you did, maybe you can stop them from sending the thing in. Because I'm telling you, you want to know what this is looking for? They're looking for you. Your DNA will tell them that you're not buying the BS. They can look at your DNA and tell that you're not programmed at all. You recognize that? You're not hidden. Who are they looking for? Are they tracking down bloodlines? Are they looking for lost siblings, lost people within the mess of this whole trust and putting kids with these families and kids having kids? And what's going on? Think logical. This is a huge story. The Queen did not wear her crown for the Queen's speech for the first time in 43 years. Why? I think it's because she no longer is a queen. Because the monarchy is in complete turmoil. Adam Schiff involved in illegal sodomite drug den exposed. What? No.